welcome to Pints of Interest again. We are coming to you from PA Flavor 2013. We were at last year's event. Again, it was Tom, myself, and my dad, who's actually in the back seat there. Having a good time at this event. We came out, this year's a little bit different than last year's. Last year we showed up as just a civilian, kind of showed up from the 2 to 5 period. Went through it, had a great time. It ended up being our favorite beer event of 2012 in PA. Mm-hmm. So we decided to up the stakes a little bit this time and did the VIP treatment, and I think we're pretty glad we did. We'll get into why. The regular ticket, if you buy it ahead of time, is $40. If you buy it at the gate, it's $45. So a little bit, you know, not a bad price. I think it's a good value for what you get in there as far as food's concerned. Now, the VIP ticket is $75, so that's a considerable jump up. That's almost double the normal ticket price. Now, I think we would say that is worth it, and there's a particular reason for that. Now, you do get some specialty beers. Victory had some specialty. They had their Ranch Double IPA. Penn had some decent specialty beers. Iron Hill had their Iron Hill Russian Imperial Stout, which is absolutely one of my favorite Imperial Stouts. So it was great that they had that available for the VIP people to try. Most places had a decent VIP beer. So basically, a lot of the beer places had 2 to 3 beers, and there was just an additional one that other people got to try. Some really good ones. Another highlight would be Insidious's Oak Bourbon Barrel Aged. Fegley's Insidious Oak Bourbon Barrel Aged was really great. They had their regular Insidious there as well, which we've had before. We never had the oaked bourbon barrel aged, so that made the VIP a very special treat there that we got to try that, so that was very exciting. That was kind of the highlight of the VIP thing until what really made the VIP thing worthwhile is while we were there, we were trying some other beers from Penn Brewery, having a nice conversation with them, talking about their beers that were there. They were actually kind enough to gift us this bottle of Penn Weissen that they had available. We were talking about Weissen beers, and I mentioned that Eyinger's Weissen was one of my favorites, and he said that this would stand up against pretty much any other Weissen beer that's out there, so he gave it to us to have a try. We're going to have probably a beer review on this then a little bit later. On that particular one, we've had some other, the Penn Brewery's ones. Chocolate Meltdown's a good one. If you follow our Twitter, we gave a beer review of that, and we're favorable on that one. Some of the other ones we had there were good from them. Was a really good, what style? It was a Maibach. Yes. It was a Maibach. It was really mild. It wasn't too sweet. It was just a really delicious beer. I was really impressed with that one. That was one of the best beers that we've had here.
And the surprising part about that was it was 10%.
That was the mind-blowing part about that, because it did not taste that way. You know, some beers mask their alcohol. You can still tell there's some alcohol in there, but they're usually heavier beers. They're your stouts, your imperials. But this one, wow.
Yeah.
Like, it was a lighter style of beer. It was almost a summer in a way. Yeah, that level of alcohol that was in it gave it a nice rich feel and a rich mouthfeel, but it didn't come across boozy or hot. It was,
it was very surprising. It was very nice.
Very surprising. But another beer friend of ours that does beer reviews came over and happened to mention that there was a specialty beer that we needed to try before it was gone while we were there. So this is really, really what made VIP worth it, is a once-in-a-lifetime chance
Pretty
to
much,
have Sam Adams Utopias.
Yep.
They happen to have 2 bottles of it available that they're giving away to the general public. So yeah, that's a pretty special thing as far as, like, it's not entirely rare that you can't get a hold of it, but it's a very expensive beer. It usually runs as, you know, in around 100, 150. If you get some of the older bottles, for instance, we know the Wooden Keg has 2 bottles of it.
Right. I don't remember what the older year was, but the older one was 350, and the one from last year was like 250.
All right.
So.
Very expensive beer. So we got a chance to sample, you know, a small amount of the Utopias 2012, and it made that $35 extra or $30 extra worth it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Very, very heavy beer. This is Utopias here, the VA flavor event. This man was very kind enough to inform us that they had some.
If you gave me this, I wouldn't think it was a beer.
What do you think, Tom? Think that'd be worth $350 a bottle? It was a very, very good beer. It was 29%. Yeah. You could never tell that it was quite that high. It had kind of like a bourbon whiskey quality to it, and a little bit more of an alcohol to it, but some of the beer was a little bit lost when you get into that higher level. I have to admit, I'm not really a whiskey drinker or bourbon drinker, so I don't really care for the higher ABV, but that one was just so refined and just so good.
It was interesting. It was very sweet and syrupy initially, and then the alcohol sort of, well, it was on your tongue the entire time, but it was like sort of middle-ish, but then by the end of it,
it finished so nice.
Yeah, it did.
It finished so nice. So rounded out, kind of a nice vanilla oak quality to it. I mean, they had aged it over 19 years in various woods and various oaks that they did, and you could tell. I mean, that beer, to me, like, if you aged that, if you took one of the Utopias, aged it like even 3-4 years just on your own kind of stuff, and just really even refined it just a little bit further from what it was, it was just amazing where it was at, especially for 29%. That's mind-blowing how good that was. So yeah, VIP. Now, I'm not saying you're going to get that every year.
Right.
We got extremely lucky to get some of those 2 bottles that were there. They did not really advertise it at all. We had no idea it was going to be there. I think we all enjoyed that pretty much. You enjoyed that one as well?
Oh, heaven.
Yeah.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah. Utopias. I don't know if it's worth $250, $350, or even $150. That's a lot of money to invest. That was great. I mean, even getting this free beer was fantastic that they handed over to us. So, you know, many thanks to Penn Brewery out of Pittsburgh. It looks like to be a pretty awesome up and coming brewer. We like a lot of their stuff. They're starting to kind of branch out even more and more outside of Pittsburgh. So, a very cool thing to look forward to. Are there any other highlights you think from the beers that we tried? It was kind of tough because in the first hour is when we had the VIP event where we tried all the specialty beers. And then kind of afterwards, it was a little bit, it wasn't not necessarily a letdown or anything like that, but it was a little bit more of a simpler beer selection that we had available to us. We did have some good beers. An interesting one we had that comes to mind for me was the Voodoo Cowbell. They listed that as an Imperial Stout with like, what was it? There's so many different things that went into it. It was ridiculous.
Milk stout.
Oatmeal, milk, chocolate stout kind of thing. Like all these things together. Imperial. Did not come across as Imperial. It's kind of watery. You know what? I'd consider that a pretty high-end porter. Just because of how watery it was, and it didn't have that heavier mouthfeel. It wasn't as rich kind of tasting, but it did have some nice flavors in it and stuff. That was an enjoyable beer that we had that I definitely took note of. Beyond that, Sprague's Farms, that was up in Erie. That's something we mentioned last year as well, the 2012 video, if you happen to see that. They had their Scotchtoberfest, I believe. They also had that last year, which we also enjoyed. We had it again this year, and it was an enjoyable beer.
It's very nice. It's very nice floral aspect to it, but very light, very refreshing for like a summer.
Yeah, that's a brewery based out of Erie, so I don't think they bottle the things. Not exactly easy to get if you're not in the Erie area. North County, I liked their stout again. Buck?
Buck.
There's 85 different beers that they brew that they informed us about. And we had their stout last year, and I happen to like that one from last year, and we had a different one this year. It was also pretty good. That was a good one. A little disappointing from this year. Victory's presence was a little bit smaller.
They didn't have food this year.
No, and their food was really good last year. Really good. They just had their typical. They had Ludwig. No, not Ludwig.
The summer pills, I'm sure, was there, and
then they had that specialty ranch.
the
So they
specialty
really
ranch,
just had 3 beers. They were last year. They had 6, and they had a food station, which was probably some of the best food we had there.
Yeah.
I think overall this year was decent for food, but not mind blowing.
yes.
Really good sauces. Barbecue stews. I'd like to mention them. They're out of Pittsburgh. Have some really good barbecue sauces. I wasn't able to actually get anything from them because they ran out of cards. They really sold through. So that's pretty high quality stuff. It's the first year that I've seen them out and about, and I would be interested in ordering more from them. That was good stuff. The Whip's food was good. They had braised beef and pickled vegetables. They did this in Weyerbacher's Tiny Imperial Stout. They braised the beef in, and then the vegetables were braised in some other Weyerbacher Verboten. Yeah, the food in general was solid. They had some real good food, but it wasn't as mind-blowing as I think the first time, where really the beer and the food stayed on the same level as far as the quality were concerned. Still good food here, but definitely the beer overshadowed, I think, some of the food. We also, while we were there, we picked up the same things we did last year. Tom ended up getting some of the red line garlic.
Yep, the pickled hot garlic cloves.
The pickled garlic, and I ended up picking up 2 bottles this time of the Arugo's Almost Everything because it's a fabulous sauce. I love it. Another interesting thing we had, actually, now that I think about it, was the Philadelphia Distillery, and they had this really nice caramel whiskey. Really, really smooth. I was pretty impressed with that. Now, I'm not much of a whiskey drinker, my opinion's probably, take it with a grain of salt kind of thing. But for someone who doesn't drink that kind of stuff, that was very smooth. It was not overly alcohol. It didn't have that burning kind of like if you take a straight shot of it, you weren't like grimacing or anything like that. It really went down smooth. But overall, another great event. I think it's something that we're definitely going to be at in 2014. Definitely recommend to anybody who's into beer, into trying food. If you can, if the cost doesn't bother you too much, VIP can be worth it. We found. I think next year we'll do VIP again. Now, are we expecting Utopias again?
No.
Or anything even along those lines? No, but we did get some of the extra beers, and even the extra beers were good.
Right.
Like the Oak Aged Insidious and some of the ones that made it a worthwhile experience. So, I guess from Pints of Interest and PA Flavor 2013. Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers.